Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well, and it's time for another edition of the YUNOREVIEW, where I go over a series of records, gauntlet style, that I didn't necessarily get a chance to review in full formally over the past month or so, so we are just kind of boxing them all in and bringing it all together here in this video segment. So, you know what it is. Here we are. Let's go. Ba-bam! After listening to this new Black Keys record, I would not tell you, I would not utter the words that rock music is dead, but I think you could certainly use this album to make the case that it really needs a vacation right now. It needs to take a break, reconnect with some friends, and just take a little bit of me time. Because while, yes, I would say this album, as far as some of the guitar licks, some of the drum beats, some of the production, it does have a bit more bite than their last full-length album, which was bland as hell, forgettable as hell, and their worst record yet. Yes, this one does have a little bit more bite to it, but the songwriting is just as uninspired as it was on the last album. Dan Auerbach's vocals have somehow gotten more soulless on this one, and I don't know why. So, yeah, I wasn't really into this one. The new Charly Bliss record is one that I was looking forward to quite a bit when I was initially enjoying some of the singles leading up to the release of this album. But I was disappointed to hear that the rest of the record didn't really pan out, in my opinion. I mean, it's not a bad album, but I wouldn't say there was anything about it that really stuck out to me as special either. I would say this thing kind of brought the band out of the mud of this throwback 90s rock nostalgia, and now they're embracing a bit more indie and synth pop, and that's fine on the tracks where the songwriting is a lot punchier and more solid, but for the most part, I just see this as a solid pop rock record, nothing more, nothing less, not a whole lot of bells and whistles or distinct qualities about it. I would even say the vocals seem a bit more toned down on this one than they were on the last record. It's okay. I just thought it was okay. The latest LP from the band Pile, indie and post-hardcore outfit Pile. I was somewhat underwhelmed by the group's last full-length album. I thought it didn't quite have as much teeth or as memorable songs as their album Dripping, which was the first record of theirs that I covered. This latest one over here, I am liking the more aggressive tone. I'm liking the more explosive performances on this one. I'm also liking some of the more political undertones and overtones of the lyrics on this one as well. The issue with this album, though, in my opinion, is that the production isn't all that great. The recording is very, very, very rough, and I don't think it's complemented at all by the more aggressive performances on this thing, because it leads to a lot of sound bleed, a lot of noise, a lot of competing bits of instrumentation that just don't translate all that well, which is kind of sad, which is kind of unfortunate, because merely from a standpoint of, again, just the performances and some of the writing on here, this could have potentially been one of the group's most exciting records yet, but I feel like a lot of the wind gets taken out of those sails by just how rough the sound is. This new EP from Koffee is shaping up to be one of my favorites of the year. She is essentially a reggae artist, but of course, she feeds this genre through more modern production, meaning, yeah, there's like some trap influences on this record. But even with that, it still sounds very much like a reggae album, you know? It sounds like a reggae record. It's a little darker, a little moodier, more digital than a lot of the classic stuff, but she's a good singer, a good songwriter, and I feel like she updates the genre in a way where it doesn't really lose touch with its roots, but it sounds fresh. It sounds like it could appeal to people who might not be that familiar with the genre or want to hear something that is a lot closer in style or tone to all of the other music they listen to. Why is Sugar Ray coming out with a record titled Little Yachty? What the hell is wrong with them? The new GoldLink album is one that I'm a bit torn on. For one, I do appreciate that it is GoldLink's most versatile album yet. Not only are you getting those elements of hip house, but also pop rap, also dancehall, also Afrobeat music, and that's all cool. Some of the production on this album is actually awesome too. The Tyler, the Creator feature is cool. The Pusha T feature on this thing is fantastic as well. Generally, the guests are impressive, but continually, GoldLink is the least interesting thing about his own music. I love that he continues to bring together these sounds and bring together these voices that really at this point no other artist is, but as a singer and as a rapper, I think he's just merely okay. So, I don't know, I guess I'll continue to try to keep tabs in hopes that eventually his vocals and his songwriting really resonate with me, but in the meantime, there are only some elements of GoldLink's music that I think are all that interesting. Don't make me do it. I don't want to do it. Don't make me do it. I don't want to do it. The new Holy Ghost album, certainly, I guess, my least favorite Holy Ghost album so far. I mean, it's a passable synth pop album, not a bad record by any means, but the production in comparison with their other work is so washed out, so reverb heavy, a lot blander. I much prefer the instrumentation that they used to employ when they were affiliated with DFA Records, but not so much these days, I guess. The latest LP over here from Earth is a kind of interesting change of pace from the legendary drone outfit spearheaded by none other than Dylan Carlson. He essentially strips the sound of the band back to simply his guitar and drummer Adrian Davies. It's so skeletal and it's so basic, it's difficult to really understand. I mean, from the standpoint of someone who's enjoyed a lot of the band's records in this aesthetic, records that came post-Hex, I guess this album provides a bit of a peek under the hood. You're hearing what Dylan Carlson's compositional process is like at its most simple and basic and root elements. The approach taken here to my ears just seems too reductive. Oh, another album from Houston rapper Maxo Kream that I have been getting a lot of requests to cover and talk about, and I did enjoy a few of the songs leading into this album, but once again, a Maxo Kream project does not really click with me at all, and I can't really explain why outside of saying, yes, occasionally he does drop a good tune, picks an interesting or a creative beat, but I just think his talent level and his style is incredibly average. There's not a whole lot about Maxo Kream that feels defining, not a lot about what he does that says to me, yes, that is a Maxo Kream song, or that is a Maxo Kream flow, or that is a Maxo Kream kind of delivery. It just seems like he's very so-so. I'm not saying he's like your average trap rapper who's making just like really trendy crap that's totally flavorless and dime a dozen. I don't think that. I think Maxo Kream is trying to make something that is more substantive, something deeper on a more artistic level, but I feel like he's just falling short of actually achieving that at this point. Orville Peck is an artist that I have been getting a lot of questions about, and I've been returning to his new album over and over to try to hear in it what so many of his fans are hyping up, but I'm just not getting it, and it's sad because I do think on a conceptual level what Peck is doing is pretty cool. He is effectively a country artist. He's on Sub Pop Records, and he's a little artsy with it. He's mysterious. It is country music, but with a weird, eerie, theatrical veneer, and all of that is amazing. However, I just think the songs are bland and the vocals kind of stink. As far as singing on a country album goes, what Peck delivers here is incredibly mediocre. And the fact that this record is kind of artsy or a little abstract with the country genre does not make up for it. New 311 album! Boy! If you are heavy into or a diehard for stoner metal, stoner rock, you are most likely going to want to check out this Torche album. It's pretty heavy, the riffs are gargantuan, the vocals do hit a few meditative states here and there. Their songwriting for a while has not been as catchy as it used to be at their creative peak in the 2000s. Again, if this is a genre of music that you just have to hear every record and every band in, I would give it a shot, but in my opinion it's one of the band's weaker moments and not exactly a shining example of how good this genre can be. New Drab Majesty record is one that I've been getting a lot of questions about, and it's not bad if you are heavy into goth revivalism. You want to hear a goth record that brings in elements of synth pop and new wave and frankly sounds incredibly anachronistic, like it could have come from the 1980s, then this is what you want to listen to. The issue though is that I feel like Drab Majesty is kind of like a dog that ends up catching the car when they're chasing it. Like, he's grabbed onto the aesthetic, he's grabbed onto the style, he has it, the goth synth pop pastiche is there, but then once that's achieved, the songwriting is just okay. The vocals are bland as hell, and it just doesn't really stand out. And as much as I appreciate that Drab Majesty is bringing that back, carrying that torch for a new generation, comparing it to the classics that obviously inspire it, it just doesn't really, I don't know, measure up. I'm not really sure what you can say about the new Banks album other than that it's the worst Banks album so far. New Mr. Motherfuckin' eXquire project. It's one of his shortest yet. The beats are noisy and freaky as hell. I will give it to the instrumentals on this one. If you want to hear some totally whacked out, distorted, wacky ass hip hop beats, like you want to listen to this project. It's insane. Sadly though, on the lyrical front, on the flow front, on the songwriting front, eXquire's either falling short of what would make this a great project or just kind of phoning in at about the quality level that he typically does, which at times is pretty good. I don't know. In some respects, an average project, but again, on the instrumental side, this thing is batshit insane. New Fuming Mouth record. It's a pretty brutal and heavy and pummeling combination of death metal, a bit of metalcore in there too. I would say, even though this album is 34 minutes and it thrashes, it bashes, it is just like a total mosh fest. Once you've heard like maybe 5 tracks off of it, you've really heard nearly every track off of it. You've heard everything you need to hear from this album. There's not much to be gleaned from hearing the rest of the record because it is so one-dimensional. So I don't know. As much as I think the band does have, again, a very brutal, a very fun, very muscular and badass take on this combination of sounds, I wish they were a bit more versatile with it, or that their songs or riffs were a bit catchier to make the experience of sitting through an album that's so one note more enjoyable. I could certainly understand the temptation to take Marissa Nadler's very eerie, nasally voice, throw tons of reverb on it, and then pair that with these droning, heavy, noisy guitars. It's certainly a very cool prospect, but I'm not sure if it's gripping for more than a track or two, really. New Comethazine mixtape Bawskee 3.5, which is confusing to me because usually the 0.5 version of something comes after the original sort of whole number. There was never a Bawskee 3.0 or 3. And yeah, for the most part, this seems like another very one-dimensional, angry, short, banger-filled SoundCloud record with absolutely no lyrical substance, no songwriting talent. It's just like, you know, generally I'm just kind of shocked at how little Comethazine has actually evolved or progressed since his last project, and just how stale he is making this aggressive breed of SoundCloud rap sound at this point. New LP from black metal legends Darkthrone. Yes, they are back with another album that sort of continues in their recent succession of records that bring together elements of classic black metal with heavy metal. It's not bad. I just wouldn't say it stands out all that much amongst their last several albums that do mostly the same thing. Some of the lengthier songs do get a little monotonous, but still, if you want to hear some heavy metal type riffs and songwriting applied with a grim black metal aesthetic, give it a shot. Rapper DaBaby has been turning quite a few heads as of late, and I can't deny that I was kind of hyped to see him on the XXL Freshman cover recently, that I have enjoyed a majority of the features that I've heard him appear on a few records. So because of that, I went into this album expecting something that was a little bold, a little brash, a little fun, kind of your standard meat and potatoes, somewhat flashy, somewhat badass trap record. And I guess he achieves that in a sense on here. He's certainly a capable rapper, but I think a lot of the instrumentals he picks on this thing are very dime a dozen, very run-of-the-mill. His hooks are a little weak on this thing generally, and for track after track after track after track, he doesn't really switch it up all that much or paint much in the way of a character portrait of himself across this album. So to simplify it, what really held me back from loving this record was that it was just incredibly one-dimensional, and that's it.